Heroes
of
Humility, 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 humility. This is not a charade. This is real. These words you are about to hear are coming from real humans on a mission to save the human race from itself. Buckle up while these delusional heroes of humility, aka HoHs, attempt to right the wrongs in everyday human behavior. This time on a very special HoHs, aka Heroes of Humility, we are without Red. Red got lost somewhere between the holidays and he's getting stuff with his family done. It's kind of rude. His priorities are all screwed up. Beige, thanks for coming. 11 is here. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, man.
Next!
Does anybody yeah,
Does anybody else have a story?
No. Does anybody ever really answer that question honestly though? Hey, how are you doing?
That's a good
now
point.
that you mention it,
My
you
life
know?
sucks and I
Yeah,
wanna eat
exactly.
my
Like
dinner.
everybody just says good, great. So let's move on.
It's
Next.
a courtesy. It's a courtesy to just say, fine, everything's good. It's a courtesy to the listener because you have to kind of gauge the situation. They may not want to get into the weeds of what's really disturbing you, and you just understand that. But what if we were more honest with that question?
Well, I think it's just like this is what people should be doing in a social situation. I should say, how are you? And you should say, I'm okay, even if
It's
you're
almost
not
like,
okay.
I'm doing well because you are asking
Right,
me, and
yeah,
I'm happy to
exactly.
be here in front of you.
Yeah.
You're not really answering that question.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, how well do you know the person? Sometimes if you know the person better and they know you're going through a tough time, and then you ask them, it would be weird for them to say, he's fine, because then it seems insincere.
Yeah, but then you have those guys who you always ask, and they're always like, meh, and they're kind of going on a rant, and then you just don't ask
And then
them
you're
anymore.
like, oh man, I forgot I
You're
gotta do this.
He's
over
never
here."
okay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I guess on the beginning we should say what we were going to talk about here. I don't like doing those intros by myself. They're painful, and I'm sure the listeners would agree. But wow, I was waiting for somebody to chime in.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sounds good.
Here we go. So anyway, the topic here is the things that you did as a kid that you don't do anymore because you're quote unquote smarter. And the quotes are there because while some things you used to do that you enjoyed, you may be depriving yourself of, they may be good that you don't do them. But on the other hand, are they? Maybe there's some things you're missing out on that used to bring you a great deal of joy and satiation. And now that you don't do them, you're living a life that's not as glorious as it was when you were a kid. When I was a kid, I mean, I was doing all kinds of dangerous stuff and I missed some of that, but probably good, right? Probably good that I don't riding my bike off the side of a cliff.
An adrenaline junkie here, huh?
Yeah. Kind of an adrenaline. I was an adrenaline junkie, and my junkiness.
You were X Games before X Games.
Yeah, I was
much.
kind of a badass, I guess is what. No, I'm kidding. I was a risk taker. I'm not as big of a risk taker now. I did it. You do more risks when you're with your friends.
Even though you have life insurance now?
I know you think I would be willing, but there's certain people that you know depend on you. There are certain tasks that you know are lining up in your week. And you're like, well, if I lose a foot before I get to that task, it's going to make it difficult. Some of us.
Yeah. Speaking of losing a foot.
Yeah, Levin doesn't worry about that. He's still jacking himself up. I had a sprained hamstring last week. And this week, 11
Can you
dropped
sprain
a giant thing.
Can you sprain a hamstring? I don't think that's
I pulled them tissue. I guess it'd be better.
You sprain a joint.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You're kind of becoming our
joint.
wordsmith, and it's good. I like it because it helps us so we don't sound like fools.
I'm just keeping you in check
Yeah,
here.
I appreciate it. Humble.
Yeah.
A little humble.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 11, how did you hurt your toe, man? What happened? I don't know if it makes for a good story, but
No,
I
it doesn't.
want to hear.
It's ridiculous. I
Okay.
was building a
better.
cabinet to go under my TV. I ended up doing it wrong, and I had to flip a piece. And I was taking it apart, and half this 50-inch cabinet just came down. And like I was just telling you, I was watching it in slow motion. I knew it. It was going right on my one toe, my second toe.
Was this like an IKEA type cabinet?
I didn't get it from IKEA, but yes, it freaking was.
Were the instructions in like Swedish or something? Is that
No,
what
but
you
it had
guys-
all those little where you put the screw in and you have to put the other thing in there.
Oh, yeah.
And
And you got to turn it around.
so it locks in. Oh my God.
Cam. Yeah, the cam. Actually, that's funny. It's called the cam. So I saw your toe, and I'm going to describe it. I mean, maybe we should put a picture of it on our social media. It's disturbing. It looks like a small piece of a hot dog that got burned on the end, and just never got eaten. Yeah, it just never got eaten.
It's that
nobody cares about it.
It's that hot dog. If you go into Circle K, the one that's been in the back.
Yeah, dude, it's just been sitting too long.
Circle K
for like a year. It's like, is anybody gonna swap this nasty hot dog out? Yeah,
that's sorry for it.
It's like the last one, and you're like, dude, I'm so hungry.
Yeah. I'll roll the dice.
Yeah,
it's been sitting overnight a few weeks in a row, but
you should have seen it this morning. The whole tip of my toe was purple.
Damn. Wow. Dude, I don't understand how I don't live that far from you. I came over to help him hang this TV. I've never seen a TV this big in person. I think I've seen this in my imagination.
It's like
IMAX.
It's the size of this cabinet right here.
It's an IMAX. You have an IMAX.
Yeah, it's like it's 88
ridiculous.
inches. I don't know. It's big. But,
that's what she said. But
yeah. So we kind of. So I was like, okay, well, I'll hold it. And
that's what she said.
He had stuff all over. You should see how happy Beige is with his jokes right now.
Dude, I use that all the time.
I know. It never gets old.
So stupid.
When we do get our video, I like it too. When we do get our video up, I think it's really going to bring things together. He's on a roll, man. Look how happy he is. Beige also does something that entertains me where as soon as he says something, he's kind of saying it to somebody.
He giggles like a child.
Yeah. I got to read the audience.
He looks around and
I got to read the audience
to really enjoy. But what I was
that
going to
instant
say
feedback
is that I live close to 11, and so I came over to help him hang this giant TV. I was like, wow, this would be a little something a little project, right? And we got it up easy, but the frame, he had the thing, and I would have done the same thing, but it was upside down, the contraption, the device to hold the TV. So when we figured that out, we turned it up, we got it all up, and the TV was just a little off, like it wasn't balanced, and I forgot my level. So we used one off the phone. It was good. But the issue was that it was a little crooked, and 11's like, nah, it's fine. We're good. Just leave it. Dude, it bothered me, man. It bothered me.
Well, I knew that I could adjust it, fine tune it later without taking it.
I wasn't sure. I wanted to be there just in case. Yeah. And I leave you alone for like a week, and now you're half the man you used to be in terms of your missing appendages.
It was a battle.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
But it looks beautiful in there now, and the TV is level.
Yeah, it does look pretty good on the.
I got to be honest. I stopped listening after Pierce said that he helped you hang up a TV, and the reason why is because I have a TV sitting in a box right now at my house that I need somebody to help me hang up. And knowing that Pierce does this,
yeah, I'll be right over.
Yeah,
and I know what tools we need. I have like a collection of tools for my Trans Am humble brag. It's a 79 that 10th anniversary silver edition, but it's
salvage title.
I had to get. How dare you? I had to get a huge collection of Allen wrenches. Yeah, it's beautiful, man. That TV is huge. 11 showing us a picture of the TV. It's hard to get an idea of how big it is unless you're in person.
I was trying to show.
That's what he said. That's what you said. Wow. Well, so yeah, it's a beautiful TV. Anyway, I just think one day I'm going to go to his apartment after we don't hear from him for a few days, and he's going to be laying under the rubble.
You can see me standing in front of it.
Damn.
That's what she said.
That's why I needed him over to help me.
Yeah. Dude,
Oh, yeah.
You can't lift it.
You don't want to take a chance.
Like I could lift it on my own, but there's no way you could put it on the mount. Like,
right.
It's impossible.
One day we're going to go to his place after not hearing from him, and he's just going to be laying in the fetal position under a bunch of rubble. But yeah, I saw his toe, and it just like I predicted, eventually we're all going to get hurt. Now, maybe some of these injuries will come from the podcast.
It's pretty dark.
Some of them not. Last week, I mean, I'm gotten skeptical, I guess, too, as I get older, but
you turned on the jets.
Yeah, I turned on the jets, and you're right. It was because I was running by you guys, and so what I was saying, this brings me full circle to what I was saying. When I was a kid, when your buddies are with you, you just all of a sudden, it's like hearing the Rocky theme in your head. You just go a little extra. So I went a little extra, and I pulled a hamstring, whatever the correct terminology is or vernacular. And I've been nursing that thing with every degree of research and reaching beyond my comfort zone to get it back to where it was, and it hasn't quite gotten there. and I'm working on it, but it concerns me when I have something out of sorts. You know, I like to have everything like 11's TV. I want that thing to be just right. And that's something I might need to work on.
Yeah, I think that's called OCD.
I think he's the most
yeah.
OCD person I've ever met in my life.
Well, OCD too is probably a diagnosis. I don't know if I have a diagnosis.
Well, I just diagnosed you.
I heard Dr. Drew say that.
You just got diagnosed.
You just got diagnosed here on Heroes of Humility.
You're the farthest thing from scientists. But I will say this, and no offense meant.
My ex diagnosed you.
None taken.
There you go.
Oh, she diagnosed me.
Yeah.
How dare her?
And she can
diagnose. Oh, now it's all going to come out because you guys are, she's your ex. Now I want to hear. Well, here's the thing is that, and I appreciate that she supported us at one point too, but I'll say this, that
she still does.
That's cool.
She's good. We're cool.
She's good people. But you know, the thing is that, yeah, there's little things. I heard Dr. Drew say that if it's not impeding function, when it starts to impede your function, it doesn't impede my function, but I wanted to come back this week and help you with the TV. I work hard with my body to try to maintain a certain level of performance that I want to be able to do. And it sounds a little bit elite. I don't mean it to sound like a jerk thing, but I just like taking care of myself. I had some family growing up that I saw did not take care of themselves, and I saw how harmful it was. And I think that also affected me a little bit.
And you didn't realize your hamstrings were wound up like tight little rubber bands until you decided to sprint there.
You have to stay flexible.
You know what it was? You weren't wearing your sweatbands.
Oh, that's right.
That's what did
it. Was those flag
Yeah.
shorts, I think, that did you in there, man.
I know.
You
I don't like how much you've talked about my shorts. I remember listening to the last episode.
They weren't short enough. If they were shorter, the hammy would have been.
Yeah.
Do you guys have something that?
I mean, I thought the national anthem was gonna start playing when I saw Pierce walk out in those shorts.
I'm kind of when I see people wearing indicia of the red, white, and blue, sometimes I'm like, okay, is it being done properly? Like there's a certain part of reverence I feel like there should go with that. And I try to do that.
And shorts definitely fit that role. For sure.
It shouldn't be, but all joking aside.
It's like written in the regulations that you're not allowed to do that, blah, blah, blah. But this is a different day and age.
That's true.
Like if people want to sport red, white, and blue.
More power to you.
Yeah. Like do it, man.
Right.
Do it.
Is there something like that, like when you were kids, that you used to do?
Especially, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's right.
If it's a little tiny bikini. Okay, go ahead.
Like a banana hammock?
Damn.
That's
I left myself over for that one.
I draw the line there. I don't want to see that. There is certain things that I just used to do with reckless abandon. And sometimes even when I get with you guys, it's like it comes out, like a little bit. And I'm wondering if there's got to be stuff like that. If you think about your childhood that you used to do, and then you just enjoyed it, but now well, I shouldn't do that exactly that way. Do you guys have things like that?
We used to like climb up anything and see how high we could get and jump off and not get hurt.
Wow.
Is that dumb?
Like roofs?
Yeah.
And then once you get hurt,
we would climb on one-story houses and stuff, and we would run, jump off, and we'd like combat roll onto the grass.
And then
we'd be okay. And then we'd climb trees and see who could. We would be like, "Oh, just hang drop. You'll make it. Yeah. It's fine." It feels like your ankles got blasted out, but
as long as you do a roll, you should be fine.
And then once you get hurt, you're like, "Okay, well, that's the limit, I guess." Now I know.
Jumping off the roof never hurt that bad because we could always get like a running head start.
Well, and
like in motion, but just dropping from a tree, that's when your ankles are like blasted, man.
But plus, you're also like in your teens doing this. You don't have 50-year-old man joints at that point. Like that's not going to feel too good now if you try to do that.
We would bomb hills on skateboards, like big hills, and just see how fast we can go. Like our wheels get shredded.
Yeah.
Because you're just going so fast, they heat up, and then you're just rolling down the hill. And
how did you?
I didn't even think about getting hurt back then. Like I'd be hurt, scraped up on my face, everything. And it was an afterthought to me.
You've always had a little bit of that, though. I think that, and it's too with the way your toe looks. I mean, it's hideous, but it's just kind of this idea that you could do anything. And I did the same thing. I didn't think about it. I remember racing buddies. I grew up in a town where we had there were mountains and valleys. Everybody, we would race, and I would actually, 8 times out of 10, I usually came out pretty well in these competitions, but it's because I would be willing to go around the corner, the edge of the mountain, not being able to see oncoming traffic. That's where I would take the lead. And I think back to some of the stupid stuff, and I did, oh man, that was such a bad decision. I could have been horribly wrong.
I mean, is this going to devolve into like stories of juvenile delinquency? Because I probably have a few of those as well.
Oh, wow.
I got to check if statute of limitations is up on most of my stuff.
5 years, I think. After 5 years.
Yeah, I think we're good on that. With me, I mean, I think all kids are probably adrenaline junkies somewhat, because as a kid, you're kind of made out of rubber and you really aren't going to get hurt too much.
You see everything on TV and you're thinking you can do all of that, And
exactly. And even if you like land wrong or something, you're like, yeah, I'll walk it off. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And generally, you're fine for the most part. But we had this house. My dad had this house in Colorado. And in this house, it was a 2-story house. And inside it had like interior windows in one of the bedrooms that overlooked the living room area So what we would do is we would go into that bedroom and jump out of the window onto the couch down below from the second story and onto the couch. Well, we're kids. We're not the smartest. We don't think things out properly. And right next to the couch is a heavy, probably 50 pounds, steel or brass or whatever, like elephant statue right there with tusks and the whole thing. So if you miss this couch, you're like doing some damage, right?
Yeah.
And my brother jumped out of the window and he missed the couch and he landed on the elephant and he broke 3 of his toes.
Oh,
I swear to, he broke like 3 of his toes, and our dad was so pissed off. He's like, we were supposed to go out to dinner that night, and he's like, I don't care. You're putting on a shoe. You're going to dinner. Because I'm pissed off you were doing this in the first place.
What are they going to do for the hospital?
And he's like,
I got duct tape right here, man.
And he's like limping and everything, the whole thing. But it's like
that's what I was telling somebody last night with my toe. I'm like, well, if it's broken, I'll just tape with my other one.
Right?
They're not. I broke a toe before.
Splint it to the other toe, But like, So I mean, that was one of the, but it was one of those things. It's like, dude, you see this like 15-foot drop or something. You're like, man, I got to try that.
Yes. And you know what? I don't think it's gone away, man. Maybe it has now, but
when your body tells you like, hey, dude,
30,
slow it down.
I had a house like the same with a balcony, and I bought this massive house, and my kids were really young, and got a bounce house, like a bounce house the size of this room, and I would put it up. Because where we are in the summers, they can't really go play outside. It's too hot,
Right.
So I'd put it, and then we're like looking at the balcony thing. And I go up there and I'd like hanging my son over the edge, dude. And I'm like, you ready? And he's like, let's do it. And I'm just dropping him on the bounce.
That's awesome.
Nice. You know what I've seen that looks fun that I want to try still is you've seen those videos like at the lake where they have the big air cushions?
Dude, I've always wanted to try one of those.
And people jump on them and people go launching in the air. Oh, I've wanted to try that. That looks so fun, man.
It's funny.
How far do you think we could shoot Pierce?
I could go pretty far because I would push my body into it.
He looks, I mean, he does look aerodynamic.
You got to kind of like.
Yeah.
Well, you would have to wear a squirrel suit. That would have to. You wear one of those wingsuits.
All this sounds perfect to me. I love the way this sounds. You know what? What's funny is you think you could land into a body of water and never get hurt, but obviously there's a point at which there's a diminishing returns on that theory, right? And I always thought, man, how high could you get up there and just really hit the water? Well, my buddies and I used to, one of my things, and it goes kind of hand in hand with this daredevil mentality as a kid, is the way you treated time was so different the way I did when I was a kid, the way I look at time now, the way I look at things that I have to get done. There's always like this impediment in my freedom and my will to do whatever I want. Never mind that, you have to work and you have to do other things, but this issue of time, it always slows me down because it's always in the back of my mind.
Because you're getting closer to the eternal sleep.
Maybe that's what it is, dude. Maybe it's because I know I'm not going to. Now, I've told you, Beige, we've talked. I think I might beat it. I think I might make it forever.
Like Tom Hanks in The Green Mile. That could be you, right?
Something like that. I'm not saying necessarily that I'm immortal, but I feel like, and that still probably hinders me a little bit in my state of my understanding of reality. And when you're a kid, that's completely, you embrace that. You just don't ever see the end. And I think what happens is as you get older, maybe this is too existential, but you time is always creeping up, and you think about it, that's the most valuable thing we have. It's more valuable than money.
Right.
Because it's going to run out, man.
Well, especially if you're a kid that hasn't experienced, and not to get too dark here or whatever. But if you're a kid that hasn't experienced death before, you don't really have a frame of reference for that. Like if the only people who passed away when you were a little kid was maybe like your great grandparents or something, you're just like, people don't die until they're old. Right. You don't have like, oh, well, crap, people can die when they're young. Like you don't think that way as a kid. You don't have that frame of reference to say, because you do feel immortal, like when you're a kid.
That's a really good point. There were 2 moments in my life where I felt that I became an adult, and it was finally finished. The third thing kind of followed after. The first 2 were this. When I was a kid, I played with my dog a lot. I would put him outside of my window at night. I would take the rubber off the screen, and I'd put the dog out. And then I'd go out in the front yard, and we just run around in the front yard doing all kinds of stealth, sneaky stuff, right?
I thought you were going to say you threw him out the window, and then you would run out in the front yard and you would catch him before he dropped. What is that?
Is it a fan?
It's the Roomba.
Oh,
that
it's
damn
the
Roomba.
Stupid Roomba, dude. And
Yep.
I'm gonna text somebody and have them turn it off. Dang.
She left.
Oh, she turned it off.
No, I saw her.
Oh, it was
leave.
somebody else.
Well, I don't hear it anymore.
Okay,
right
okay,
now,
good
so,
call.
Yeah, let's take a sledgehammer to that Roomba after the show, please.
That Roomba. Anyway, I don't want to get into that thing. It's basically owns us.
I think we've discussed the Roomba previously.
What was I saying? I can't even remember. It was a really good point about something. Right?
We'll come back to that. Thanks a lot, Roomba.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, the time that we have is precious. That was one thing. Apparently, nobody was listening. I just think that you have to be careful with the time you have. I used to take a lot more risks.
You were talking about your 2 near.
Oh, there you go.
You're
11.
good, bro.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. That's funny. LOL, man.
Stealing your thunder.
Okay, so when I became an adult, so I used to play with this dog. His name was Tippy, and we were like inseparable. We did everything together, and we were in tune. Dogs, I think, have this really interesting skill to understand and see things that humans are experiencing at a different level. And that's why I think we're so much tighter with dogs than any other pet. So this dog started to make a weird sound, and I sensed it. I was in the backyard, and my mom's like, I ran up front, and he had bitten into a horny toad. And they're a special kind of toad in the southwestern of the United States that was prevalent at the time. And they also secrete an enzyme from their system. He bit into this toad, and it did this in his throat.
Hallucinating.
And he started to suffocate. He couldn't breathe. It closed something up. I don't know how much of it he actually tried to swallow or if it was just the enzyme. So my dad tried to reach down in his throat, and he couldn't get it. It was the weirdest thing. I saw my dad go far into his throat.
He swallowed the toad?
He either swallowed it or he got too much of that enzyme in him. I can't remember. I was probably about 3 to 4, I remember.
Oh, okay.
And so the dog was suffocating, and when I realized, and it was just mayhem, my dad's trying to save the dog, my mom is crying, and for the first time in my life, that night, I saw a hero, my dad, cry. And when I saw him, dude, I realized, holy shit, this is real. Because I had never seen my dad even get upset. He was, just to be honest, a little bit here, my dad did a number of different types of difficult jobs in law enforcement. And he was like this stoic, heroic figure in my mind. He was untouchable in a lot of ways. And when I saw my dad get upset, it changed me. And my dad, we buried the dog that night in the backyard, and we had to put a bunch of rocks over the grave because coyotes would come. Yeah, that was one of those things. And when you were saying about death, whether it's a really close pet like that or a human, that's something that kids don't necessarily grasp. And my parents tried to kind of explain it to me, but it was huge. It was a game changer, man. So the loss of my dog, then seeing my dad, and then later on in life, really it was the last thing that changed, that I really became like an adult, was where I saw my dad you realize your parents, especially my dad and my mom, they're not perfect, man. They were not perfect. And then that's when it really hit me, wow, life is more complicated than I thought it was.
Right. Yeah. Cause obviously as a kid, you look at your parents and it's like, they're your role models. They could do no wrong. But, as an adult, the more mature you get, you realize that everybody has flaws. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Oof, what a buzz.
But yeah, this guy was super serious, man.
I know.
It's mind blowing though. That's what, like when you're a kid, man, you just, until you get a hold of those concepts, you're just,
you're just jumping out of trees.
Yeah. I had the same motivation to jump off stuff, but I was always kind of held back. And I remember, that feeling you get when you stand on the edge of stuff.
I was just always like an adrenaline junkie. Yeah. I guess I didn't even know it. Like there was always just something wild that I had to do. I grew up surfing. I got into trying to like surf the biggest waves ever. And one day I went out with some friends and we knew this huge swell was coming in. And this was up in the Gold Coast and just kind of near Ventura in California. And I'd never surfed the spot before. My friend was taking me there. It's like a secret spot that him and his dad had.
You're like a Bodie from
yeah, exactly.
Point Break.
There. Exactly.
Yeah. There's
years later, I masked up and started robbing banks.
Yeah.
Nice.
I knew that's where this was going.
I am an FBI agent. So we kind of look over the berm and we see like waves, it's like 6, 7, 8 foot, whatever. And so we go and suit up. It's like 40 degrees out and the water was 41.
Pacific's always freezing, right? The Pacific?
Yeah.
It's always
and this was dead
cold
winter.
as hell.
The water was 41 degrees. Yeah, the water was 41. The air was, the air was 41. The water was 40. So we went out and
wetsuits and stuff.
Yeah, wetsuits. Yeah. We had booties and everything too.
Yeah.
And we get out there past like the shore break, but we didn't know it was shore break at first, like those waves. And I'm looking down the beach and I just see these monsters coming in. There's nobody else out there. And there was a plane crash off the coast. So all these rescue vehicles are out there, but there's nobody on the beach walking dogs or anything like normal. There was nobody in the water. And I'm like, this
could go bad.
This is bad. So we paddle out and I'm with my buddy Josh. He's like a year younger than me, but he's always like my little brother growing up. We're like best friends. We're closer than family, And then my buddy Jesse, who was always like, I'll surf 25, 30 footers. I don't care. So I see these monsters coming out. Look at them. I go, I don't think we're out far enough. And just then, like the horizon just goes doof, just up in the air. And I'm like, oh my God. Like it is massive. I mean, we're talking the face of the waves are 20, 25 foot.
Wow.
It wouldn't get like that at our normal beach because it just never got that big there.
Just because of like the geography and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. But this beach can pick those up.
Right.
We were kind of like in the middle. Like, do we paddle back and try to like not take such a big hit, or do we go for it and try to get under the wave before it breaks? And you like duck dive. You put your board under and you swim under the wave. We went for it. Well, they all kind of just went off of me, and I was just like, fuck it, let's go. So, so we went for it and the wave broke right in front of our faces. Just ripped the board out of my hands.
Oh.
We're tumbling. These were sets
because that could knock you out potentially, right? Could that potentially like knock you out?
but probably not. But what it does is creates a bunch of oxygen, air all through. That's what all the whitewash is. And you get tumbled so much you don't even know which way is up.
Right.
And you're not grabbing any water when you're trying to swim. And you're just kind of like in that soup. Like just churning with it, and you're basically at the mercy. But we were in such good shape. We used to practice for big wave surfing all the time. We'd practice holding our breath every day. We were holding our breath for like 4 minutes,
Wow.
So boom, that happens. We finally get up. Here comes another one. And then another one. And then another one. And these were sets of waves that were like 7 or 8 in a row. And so finally we survived that, paddled way out. And then we're all looking at each other like, what do we do, man? And I'm sitting there looking at them like terrified. So I was just like, well, I guess I got to get one. So I turned around and the next big set that came in, I was like, fuck it. And then I went and their eyes are all big. And I just caught this monster, man. It took me like a quarter mile down the beach. And I was just like cruising on it. I wasn't trying to do tricks and all that stuff. He said, I had sponsorships and all. Yeah. So I was just worried about my buddy Josh. So I ended up making it back out. And I can barely see them. They're like little ants down there, And I see someone taking off on a wave. I was like, oh, it's Jesse. It's not Josh, But then I see him surfing and I could tell. I was like, oh, shit, that's Josh. I was like, and he just looked like this little miniature thing on this massive wave.
Damn.
Yeah. And I talked to him later and he's like, I wouldn't have gone if you didn't do that. And then our buddy Jesse just waited it out and ended up paddling back in. He didn't catch anything, man.
Right.
But we were out there an hour. We're like blue. You know,
Yeah.
our lips are blue, hands.
And then
are-
after that, you have those experiences, and you're like, dude, I literally could have died out there
Yeah,
today.
and it hits-
Like,
and that's
and
my
that hits
point.
you, yeah.
Yeah. It's not like we set out to go big wave surf
Right.
that day. We had no clue. We were just idiots.
But a
Idiot
lot of
kids.
and a lot
you
of
know?
times, like, you don't know that, like, as you're doing it,
Yeah.
but then after everything's calmed down and
Yeah.
you have a minute to think, you're like,
Well, I
holy
remember
crap, that was close.
This
dude.
was when I was like 17 or 16, you know, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was just talking to Josh about it like a day or two ago.
we could have died that day.
What a
Yeah.
wild, yeah, it was unreal.
You know what's a dangerous thing about friendship with you is that I've been in a situation. I know that sounds, you're already like thinking, oh, here we go. But look, I've been in a couple of situations with 11, and one of them I can't talk about because it was a little dangerous. But when 11 says, let's do it, you know, or yeah, we're going to do it, then you kind of just feel like, all right, we're going to do this. And I'm sure you had some of these experiences back when you were deployed, but that's kind of the way I feel with 11. Like in a couple of situations, one, I'm thinking back to the one I can't describe.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. And I felt good having just 11.
That's
We were going to,
Scary situation.
yeah, we were going to do it, and it was fine. And I would have done it, but knowing that 11, we both just was, it was just like, I felt like, all right, cool. And no one's 100% sure all the time. But when you have a buddy that you just feel like, okay, we're going to do this together, it's like, you're going to do it. Be careful because, you know, your buddy's making a call and he's also using some judgment. He doesn't necessarily, he's not like the Wizard of Oz. He might make the wrong call too. So hopefully you guys are working together to arrive at the best decision, because I could see how if I was in that water with you and you said, yeah, F it, let's do it, I would have been like, all right, let's go, man. And then you're like, you guys are both out there, you know, it's just one of those.
Well,
that's
my only concern at that point was them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking
Well,
at
that's
them.
why-
I'm looking at their faces. I'm just like, how am I going to get them out of here?
Yeah, I
man?
see that underneath. It's a little below skin deep. 11 has that in him where he's like, and I have that too. It's like where you got to look out for each other, and that's kind of a thing. And so when you see someone like that, when they're willing to do something, you're like, okay, I'm willing to do that too. You can tell they're not just like complete maniacs. They have something
Right.
prudent.
Well, and it can be positive like that, but it also can be negative because you don't want to look like a little
Yeah. Right.
punk
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's like, oh,
I mean,
man,
deep
can't-
down, I wanted to get one of those things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Right.
shred my face off, you know. But
But if somebody
but,
else
but
is
at
like,
the same time, I can't go enjoy that knowing that they're sitting out here.
but if somebody
So-
else is gung ho about something, you don't want to be the guy. Oh, I don't think we should do that.
Yeah.
Let's go back, because
When
then
we
you're
were
just
putting
like,
up- when
because
we-
then you're
yeah.
like the little punk.
When
you
we were
know?
putting up that 88 some inch TV or whatever, I said, well, let's just put, he had this huge ottoman, and I thought, well, let's just put that underneath in case we do lose our grip. Because there was one moment where I kind of didn't, I was just on my fingertips and I didn't have a really good grip to get under the TV. And I thought, well, let's just have that pillow, but I couldn't explain all that to you. I just thought, well, let's move this over. And then you said, nah, let's just do it. And I was like, all right.
I
let's do it.
trust in your abilities, dude.
And you were right. But dude, I like having a backup, you know?
I don't care.
It was kind
Yeah,
of,
I don't like what ifs, man.
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny.
If we
That's
talked
true.
about it any longer, you would have dropped it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That there, you have a kind of a point to that sometimes, you know, you gotta just kind of have to go for it.
Well, and I will.
Interesting.
And I will say another thing. I mean, mainly we've talked about things we did when we were younger that were like adrenaline seeking things, or, you know, what have you, but also like just bad judgment, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you were young and dumb and didn't know any better, didn't have life experience. I remember, I think we all grew up in the same era. So we all grew up in like the 80s. And for the people listening now that are much younger than us, totally different world in that era as opposed to now. Like, kids were like feral animals back then.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
your parents just said, all right, you come home from school and it's like you and your buddies just go and you guys run the neighborhood pretty much, you know,
Yeah.
and it's, as long as you're home for dinner,
You
it's
come in-
okay.
you come in when the street lights come on.
Yeah.
That-
If
that's
you're
how you
home,
do it.
if you're home for dinner, nobody's looking for you.
Every,
you know what I
every
mean?
day when the street lights come on, you could see kids sprinting. down the
Exactly.
street,
Yeah. Like,
trying
I gotta
trying to
be
get home.
like, dinner's at
'Cause
6. I
they're
gotta
gonna
be
get-
home.
They're gonna
you know?
get their ass whooped.
Exactly. Yeah. So as long as you're home by that time, that's all good. But other than that, for that 2-3 hours after school, it is like Lord of the Flies
Yeah.
or something. You know what I mean? So like, you get involved in a lot of crazy shit.
Whatever
Sorry,
you can imagine.
Pierce. So I remember one time we were going around, and back in the day they used to have, do you guys remember these, the cash for cans machines? They had machines where like you could put your cans in the machines
No.
and they would like give you money.
Well, I grew
Like,
up
you
in
didn't have to.
California.
Well, here they would have those.
Yeah.
So like they would have like a cash for cans machine, and you would get your cans, and instead of going to the place where they take your cans or whatever, you just went to this machine, put all your cans in this machine,
You could have
and
filled them with rocks.
dude, well, you're stealing my thunder here,
Oh,
buddy.
I'm so
Oh my
my
God.
bad, dude.
You criminal.
So we were like, you know, I don't know, 11, 12 years old, just a band of
Thugs.
crazy
Yeah.
kids, you know, like up to no
Trying to
good.
get enough to get a pouch of
Yeah. And so,
big league chew.
right. So in our neighborhood, they had a bunch of these orange trees, and they would always drop their oranges on the ground. So we had this bright idea, like let's go round up all these oranges, and we're gonna dump these
You're
in
the
this
reason
cash.
they don't have these machines.
I'm pretty sure because they stopped having these soon after that. So we jammed this damn machine full of oranges, thinking that it would give us money for cans, I guess.
Delinquents, man.
And I don't remember. I think it might have actually given us money because the technology back then probably isn't as good as it
Are
is
you just
now.
afraid
so
to
it
admit
was
it?
just going off of weight probably. And so like it gave us money, and we ended up going to the store and buying candy with it or some
Yeah.
BS, you know, but it's like, it was so stupid, you know, like
The
so things like
arcade.
that we would do. It's just like, you know, and you probably destroyed that machine, and some
Yeah.
guy had to come out and,
Clean out all
you
the
know,
rotten.
and he's like, these damn kids, these idiots, you know,
Yeah.
like,
It's an interesting tell when you're listening to somebody describe and confess a crime, because you hear them say, I think we got some money, but then they also remember going and buying stuff with the money. So it's like, yeah, you got the money, dude. That's funny. So anyway,
yeah, well,
it's a good
you know,
one.
I'm sure
My-
the statute of limitations run out
yeah,
of that.
5
yeah.
years, you're good.
Yeah.
My cousin was like a little pyro back in the day. He
Oh,
liked to-
jeez.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
That's right. You've talked about some of the. Was he the one that had the fire on his feet when he was running away? Yeah.
Oh my god. He
Oh,
used to light
jeez.
everything on fire.
Like
he would-
Beavis.
No,
He'd
yeah.
get like gasoline and like pour pictures on the ground and light it on fire.
Nice.
And now he's doing 20 to life.
He's actually extremely successful.
I know. I'm just
Isn't that
messing
funny
He's
with
like
how that
you.
works
making
out?
programs for Amazon and everything. Like
That's funny.
Yeah.
he's all. We grew up together. He's
He
a-
developed the Firefox, right? The brown.
That's
Yeah, that was bad. But
that was a dad joke.
It was a bad joke or a bad idea?
that was a dad joke.
Wah,
okay.
wah. I thought it was great. I love
a good
bad
one.
jokes.
Yeah.
I like them
the
too.
worse the
I'm
better.
I'm a dad, so you know.
Yeah.
You gotta
You know
put a
what?
dad
When they
joke
say
in.
dad jokes, so what, dude? I've heard some dads say some funny stuff. What's the problem?
Yeah.
Just because it's a joke, what is there a mom joke? A kid? I don't
no,
know.
because it's like a joke that just falls flat.
yeah, that's
Right, yeah.
that's
but
what they're trying.
that's
to
what's
say.
funny about it.
Yeah, that's
It's like
exactly. yeah.
I had a buddy that when I'd go used to teach schools out at Fort Benning, and he was a master at telling like anti jokes.
Like just creating the awkward silence.
He was a dude that could like build up like everything, you know, and he'd get you into it, you know, and he's like all so animated with his arms and the way he moves and everything he's talking, and he builds up this joke for a good 2 minutes. And we're all standing in a group and we're all like instructors there, you know, we're all teaching this school. And then like I wish I remembered the joke, but at the end he just says the punchline, which isn't really a punchline.
It's not that.
And everyone just stands there, and I'm standing in the back laughing,
Yeah.
dude. And we were good friends
Yeah.
after this because he looked at me. He's like, "Yes," he
Right.
like pointed at me. He's like, "You're the only guy I like here."
Get me. Yeah, it's
Everybody
like,
else is like, I just wasted 5
Yeah,
minutes.
they're
of my
like,
life.
"I don't get it." I'm like, "Of course you don't."
that's
man.
quintessential. Norm Macdonald was like that.
Yes,
you know? I love that
exactly.
stuff,
Norm
yeah.
Macdonald,
I know
yeah.
what you mean for sure.
All right,
That's good.
so now Pierce and 11 have to share their little delinquency story here. Now that I shared my cash for cans,
I can't remember.
what a perfect angel!
Yeah, I don't really remember doing. You know what? I think you know what I did. Oh, here's
I think
what I
mine's
did.
too criminal.
You want to go first?
No, I
worried.
cannot share.
Okay, all right. I'll
But
go first.
I
You
do
can
have
think
I
about
do
it.
have a fun story that
Okay,
that was
go for it.
semi-criminal. I got in trouble for stealing something once.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was it?
A pair of sunglasses.
Were they even good sunglasses?
No.
See, there's that juvenile
But,
lack
okay.
of judgment
Yeah.
there. If you're
Okay,
gonna
so-
take the hit, you got to go big
Yeah.
here, man. Come on.
So we all got fake IDs when we were
Oh.
yeah in LA. You just go over to, it was like Echo Park, and you just pretty much stick your hand out the window like you're holding an ID, like you're making a C with your hand, and then guys will come up to your car and be like, "Hey, come with us."
Papa Giorgio. I'm the king.
McLovin.
Yeah, I'm the king of the obscure reference, but yeah.
What was that? Vegas Vacation.
Vegas
I love it,
Vacation.
dude. I love it.
Papa Jordan.
I appreciate your movie quotes. So they walked me over to Photoshop, this picture shop where you can get whatever pictures done. And it's like this old 90-year-old Korean man who's like angry at everybody. And these dudes that brought me in there are like vatos, I'm like, oh my God. And here I am, this little surfer boy at like 17. And
just want to buy a beer.
Yeah, I go in there and I got an Arizona ID and a Florida ID, and they looked like trash. Hilarious. I still use them. They got me through Vegas. And I ended up washing one of them, and my shorts turned completely brown. So anyway, where we're from in the little town, we would go, and if we could get through like a restaurant or whatever with the ID one time, that's all you pretty much need, And I would like start talking to the bartender and all that, and they're going to remember us. Okay, we'll come back in a couple days. And so we went to Acapulco. You remember that place? Yeah.
Well,
we
in Mexico, right?
No, it was like a restaurant called Acapulco. They had a whole chain of them.
No,
But
I don't know if we had those out here.
Yeah, I don't
maybe it
think
was a
we had
California
those.
thing.
Yeah, California.
But they used to do Margarita Mondays. We went there and got smashed at margaritas, and then went down to the beach with a case of beer. And somebody's backyard was chain link fenced, and it kind of went down this hill onto the sand of the beach, And at the bottom, we were all like hammered. We look over there, and at the bottom, they have a hot tub sitting there. So we jumped the fence, and we're like chilling in the hot tub, drinking beers and stuff. And they don't even know from the house because it's kind of like up this little bit of a hill. They ended up coming out and calling the cops. We ran away. Nobody caught us. This is my confession.
That's your confession. There you go.
When you say delinquent,
that was pre-Ring camera days, pre neighborhood app. Where have you seen these
cell phones were just being used then?
Right. Nowadays, it's like that happens, and have you seen these kids, these delinquents, and it's all neighborhood news, and people are posting about it and everything.
Yeah. But that was the beginning of many times we went there and used that jacuzzi. That was
nice.
I think they just gave up on us after a while and just kind of let us do our thing.
Gosh, the worst things I did, one, I actually felt pretty guilty, and I eventually told my dad first and then my mom, was I was making out with the neighborhood, the girl that lived next door to us. I knew I was way too young to be doing this, and she was the same age. So I told on myself. I don't know, it was more awkward than anything. But when you say delinquent, the only other thing that comes to mind.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry. Why is my story so horrible?
I can see the halo shining from where I'm sitting right now.
When you said delinquent, the only thing I thought of, there was a, again, unfortunately, the girl, this involves the same situation. So there was this girl in my class. I think this was first grade, and she didn't have a red. And she had a British accent. I just remember she was beautiful. And, we're first.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's a peer story. They always are.
She was.
Even in first grade.
Well, she was beautiful. It's just, you guys have to understand the context.
Yeah.
You have to understand the context.
She was a supermodel at 8 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
I think she was. And she had this exotic accent.
Is this where your love for the Brits came from?
I don't
British
know,
women?
man. It's just that European accent. It's like hypnotizing to me for some reason. As long as their teeth are good and they have good breath, because sometimes it doesn't go hand in hand. No offense.
Are you trying to say British people don't have good teeth?
I didn't want to, perpetuate the stereotype, but that's kind of important to me.
My whole family's from Scotland, right?
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Well, not that,
Did you say sorry?
It's like British, dude. That's, to me, I don't think
English.
British. Like in English.
Like he's sorry that your family's from Scotland.
Yeah, I'm sorry that your family
breath.
has fucked up teeth.
That's what I'm sorry about. So point is, she didn't have a red crayon. So I thought, I'm going to look like a hero. Maybe we'll hit it off. Who knows? Maybe we'll start dating or whatever. I threw her a red crayon. And right about that time, the teacher looked around. She said, "What did you throw?" And I was just kind of acted like, I don't know what, kind of like how Beige is telling the story about how he doesn't know if he actually took money from the machine. So I was just like, well, I mean, I don't know. And she came over and she says, "You threw something." And the girl I think she tried to kind of defend me, but whatever it wasn't. I need more of a defense than that. I didn't get enough.
Through her accent, she couldn't.
I thought she was going to be able to charm she couldn't charm the teacher like she charmed me. And this lady, she happened to be a big lady who was kind of like a military type, what you would picture like a drill sergeant. And she looked at me and she says, "You will be coming in on your recess." and you, Pierce, will be writing on the board that we do not throw things in class.
Standards.
Yeah. And I thought,
I've done so many of those.
I said, I'm not coming in on my
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, this is not the Pierce you know today.
This is an American
This
bad.
This was a different Pierce at the time. Now, I looked at her, but I didn't say it vocally, but I said it with my eyes.
No, ma'am.
I'm not coming in on my recess. And I went in. And
Had you just watched the Wolverines?
no.
Or
this was
Red
before.
Dawn?
This is before. I mean, I just went to, I went out to my recess. There was a game for some reason where like the girls and the boy, like girls were chasing boys, and there was always soccer. Those two games I got roped into, and I was having a blast and ditch them and all this. And I was like, what's the word? What's she going to do? You know, I'm Pierce. Like she could take, she's going to lose, right? She's going to lose when she goes up against Pierce. I just was assuming this. I didn't know how. I hadn't done the math to figure out how, but I knew she was going to lose. And then when I went back to class, I figured I would just try to use some charm and be like, oh, you know what? May I come in tomorrow because I forgot? And I would absolutely do that because I understand that throwing a crayon is wrong. Even though it was only a few feet, and I actually talked to her like this. I said, even though it wasn't that far.
You manipulative little bastard.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I know I broke the rules.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I didn't break them that.
Yeah. I was trying to kind of organize this in a way that she could see my point of view and win her over. But the problem was with this lady, she was not charmed, man. She didn't fall prey to the British girl's charm or
the
my
Pierce,
charm.
yeah.
And she was impervious, dude.
She is the ice queen, dude.
She had a
heart of stone. Yeah.
Whoa.
That was
That was at the same time,
was
bro.
creepy.
She had a heart of stone. So when I came in,
You guys are one.
she had a fire in her eyes, and she says, Pierce, you're coming with me. And I said, oh, where are we going? That's what I was thinking. Where are we going? She obviously wants to tell me that she's sorry, that she even punished me or said that I couldn't. And she said, we're going to the principal's office. And I was like, oh man, that guy looks like Hitler. Because he had like a mustache, a weird little mustache.
He was rocking that mustache?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty much done after.
He was still keeping it alive.
That kind of, yeah.
In my mind,
after
there's
that
even-
guy, it's like that kind of went away from the fashion scene.
That'll give you a clue into the staunch, very conservative, very strict education that I received. This guy was like, so she took me to the office, and I went in there, and I heard her explaining to the principal what happened. I was like, when do I get representation? Like, do I get a lawyer here?
Yeah.
Like the way she's painting everything is like very hostile, and her voice was like even
Nobody's
elevated.
read me my rights.
Yeah,
yet.
and I was like, when do I
He's in
get
there taking kids' heads off with red crayons.
Yeah, I could have poked somebody's eye out with
sharpening
a Crayola.
him to a fine point.
Where's the harm? I was
Throwing
thinking.
miniature missiles.
I would just it
at
blew me.
foreigners.
She didn't have a red.
Shanks.
The bigger crime here was that she couldn't envision the idea that she had in her mind for what should be on the paper. She couldn't bring to life because she didn't have a red. If anything, I should be thanked.
He's just trying to feed creativity.
The artistic.
that's
Yeah,
it.
I'm
she
just
was
spreading red and love and helping the hot British girl. And I was like, where is the crime
You're
here?
helping the Brits be the redcoats.
Yeah, we're
with
like
the red crayon.
bridging the gap between our two countries. And I felt like I was doing so much good.
Should have been invited to the UN after this
I don't
instead of
get
the principal's
what happened.
office.
It changed me because what happened was she said, well, Pierce, come in here. And then I thought, okay, I'll get to present. And I thought, okay, this guy, my dad had like these old videos of World War II and stuff. So I even at that age, I knew like Hitler was no bueno, not a good guy.
You see someone with that mustache, you're like,
Yeah.
trust him.
Yeah, I said, don't trust. Like anytime I saw that guy, and I went in there and I tried to be charming. I tried to explain that, oh, look, there was no harm here. She didn't have a red. I thought that there was inequality among us. Why should I have the red? I felt like maybe the teacher should have done a little better job at making sure we all had. So I tried to kind of put it on the teacher. And dude, she got more and more upset listening to me and my shenanigans. And the next thing I know, the principal says, we're going to be calling your mother. And I was like,
oh, just getting progressively worse.
it got worse and worse, dude. And I was watching all this unfold, and I had never been through this drama before.
Before he knows it, he's in the electric chair, and this is basically.
But were you okay with them calling your mom? Because I know me when I was a kid and I did stuff that I could justify. I'm like, go ahead, dude.
Well, they asked.
Call
They did
everyone that you can call because they'll all agree with me and they're going to tell you to go F yourself.
That's what I thought.
Mm.
Guess what? They got my mom on the phone and they said,
She was putting on a show for them.
she said, your son was asked to come in on his recess. He deliberately did not come in. My mom said, what happened? And I think they explained that I had thrown something in class. They didn't say it was just a crayon. I think they made it a little more dramatic. Again, I wasn't getting justice, dude. So they said, we have to call you to get your permission to spank him. And all of a sudden, my eyes looked the room over real quick.
Corporal punishment.
Looking for the
paddle,
egress.
the device.
Yeah, I was looking for situations like, how do I was always been a little tactical mind, dude. My mind was like, what do I do here? And all of a sudden, I also, as I was looking for a way out, I saw a paddle laying on the floor.
No way.
Yeah, I saw the paddle and these guys were ready to go, man.
Was it like a ping pong paddle or?
It was to spank me paddle. Yeah, it was and it wasn't kind of the good spanking.
It was, yeah.
Not like the kind of
Thick-
spanking you want.
Thick piece of hickory there.
Yeah,
or
it was
something,
like
right? Yeah.
It wasn't
Like
the
a short oar.
yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the spanking the neighborhood girl and maybe we were doing at that time. This was the spanking that an adult would do on your rear when you did the wrong thing, right? So
That was all gone when I was a kid.
they didn't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Corporal
That must have been a
punishment?
small town thing because in the big cities, they weren't allowed to do that.
Is it called corporal punishment?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like Hitler is gonna give you your corporal punishment.
Yeah.
He's
It's
been-
pain
some kind of
compliance.
military.
Yeah.
Well, it's very militarian sounding, but that was the thing, dude. And I saw it and I was like, oh, not only can I not leave the room because that would be weirder and it's too far away from me and there's too many objects in the way, but I see like this weapon in the, so it was all bad. So I said, let me speak to my mom, please. They gave me the phone and I said, Mom, what are you doing to me here? And I remember our conversation and my mom said something to me.
That was a life or death situation. Right
Yeah.
there. That's why it's seared in your head.
Yeah.
When you're a kid,
It changed me,
when
man.
you're that age, that's a life or death situation.
I thought she was going to help me get out of this. And she said, son, when you leave this house, you go out into the world and there are rules. They're not necessarily the rules that you would have when you're home, but there are rules there.
that's legit advice.
And if you break those rules, you have to answer the punishment for those rules. And I couldn't argue with her. I
Yeah.
realized it made sense to me.
Yeah.
That was the way I dealt with the parent, with the
And that
teacher
was a great way to put it too.
and the principal, as I was always trying to use logic to explain to them why the error of their ways, but I couldn't. So I hung up and I said, okay, Mom. And she said, all right, I'll pick you up after school. I went over there, grabbed my ankles, and they said, we're gonna spank you now. And I think
Then he heard a zip.
I think maybe it was him. Now, I didn't have to take my pants down, but I remember getting spanked, that I got whacked pretty good. And I remember that lady watching me the entire time, looking into my eyes.
Was she doing like the movie villain? Like,
Did you
excellent.
did you just dead face her?
I didn't.
That's a big.
You know what
F.
she said when we were walking back to the classroom?
Huh.
She said, "You didn't even cry."
You psycho.
Now, what kind of a lady says this
That is no lady.
Yeah.
to a first grade kid who's just trying to be a hero for this British girl? You didn't even cry. And I realized there is evil in this world.
Was she saying like, "Oh, you're a badass. You didn't even cry"?
No, she didn't say it. She was.
Oh, she didn't mean that.
She was
Yeah,
saying.
that's
She
the
was
way-
saying it should
that's
have
funny,
been
Beige.
worse.
Beige is like, she's giving you kudos.
Yeah,
You didn't
she's
even
like,
cry.
yeah.
Maybe she was, and you just took it the wrong
I would
way.
have been like, "Damn, yeah, I am tough.
Yeah.
Thanks, lady, for
Well,
noticing."
what was worse is I didn't say anything to her when she said that. And now I was like stoic. So I got home, and the only other part of this, and this is almost over the story, but there's still a climax here. I said,
That's what she said.
dude, my mom's on the
I
other end of
knew
the
it.
story.
I knew
Sick
it.
bastard. So I
Sorry.
said, so immature. I said
Gonna
to
be
my
this
mom,
entire episode.
I didn't say anything when I got in the car with my mom. My mom said, and I didn't say anything, and she says, "Do you know why I let them spank you?" And I didn't say anything. And she says, "If I'm going too fast right now on the road, the speed limit is 45. If I go 55 and I get pulled over, the policeman has to write me a ticket,
Gonna
right?"
spank me.
And
Sorry.
that's too bad, dude. You just ruined the story. No, she said, if you go too quick, on the road, you're going to get a ticket. And she explained the same concept to me. And my mom's wisdom, dude, it blew my mind, and I couldn't argue with it. And I realized at that moment that changed me forever. And now you see the Pierce who came out of that situation. And do you know that years later, and I'm saying only a few years ago, I learned that when my mom hung up with the principal that day, she cried the entire day. She was bawling. She called my grandmother, and my grandmother read her the rights act. And she said, "How dare you let anybody hit my grandson? You made the wrong decision, and you shouldn't do that."
It was a good lesson.
And my mom,
after you said what she told you, it made
But
sense to
in
me.
hindsight, you do agree with her decision.
absolutely,
Right.
my mom changed. She saved my life because I was going to go out there and get into trouble. And a lot of the things I've told my mom this, I have so much to thank her for. She just made me who I was. And that saved me so many issues. I mean, so many other problems that I could have got into that I almost did.
Gangs, selling drugs. I mean, all could have started from throwing that crayon.
Dating
in
British
class.
girls
Pimping
left
hoes.
and right. Yeah.
Starts with throwing a crayon, and before you know it,
I kicked the ball through the top
You're
window.
running a brothel.
Yeah. Who knows, dude? There's a lot of things, but seriously, she did. And I kicked the ball through the top window of a school once accidentally in kickball. Humble brag, pretty good hit. And it went through the window of a class, but I remember getting into some trouble like that. But even the way I reacted was different because of what I had been through before.
right? You're like, I broke a rule,
Right.
and you just dropped trowel right there and said, "All right, spank me."
I basically,
You know what? You were
basically-
talking about that story, and I was like, no way she let that happen. But then, as you said what she said, I was like, oh, okay.
My mom
Yeah.
was
No, that was good.
She was just wise beyond her. And my mom said something to me about, she says, "Son, I always raised you with a little bit of common sense, but a whole lot of love," because she was telling me she didn't always have the answers. And that is full circle about like when you realize your parents aren't perfect, but they don't necessarily have to be.
right.
You just have to have a little bit of common sense.
My older son is like you, and it took a long time to figure him out, man, because he had a lot of sensory issues, and he was like a terror. And I tried every parenting technique I could think of, everything, to whooping his butt and everything. And it got to the point where I'd give him spankings, and he would just look at me stone cold, not crying or nothing. And he's just like, "One day I'm going to be bigger than you. No, I can be able to beat you up." And I was like, okay, well, that just broke my heart.
Yeah.
So then he is super logical. He's 16 now, and the kid's a giant, 6'6".
Yeah, he is still.
But yeah, so I had to start explaining things logically to him, and then I started giving him the respect that I would give any adult.
Right.
And then I would explain to him, okay, I'm not here to tell you what to do, to like be your
Drill sergeant.
Yeah, be your
or-
drill sergeant or anything like that. I'm here to guide you. I'm training you to be an adult.
so that you can make your own decisions
Yes.
based on a framework
Yes.
that I've given you.
And
like,
that's exactly what I would. And I'm like, I'm training you. Think of it this way. I'm training you to be an adult. That's it.
yeah.
I was like, you are going to make your own decisions.
Yeah.
I'm not with you 24/7 to tell you what to
Can't
do.
be. Yeah.
So when you mess up, that's on you,
Yeah.
and you're going to own it. And that's the way and ever since then, things went great. Like it just kind of changed the whole dynamic of everything.
Awesome. Because he owns part
He
of
does.
it. Yeah.
He does.
You've given him ownership of it. That's
Yep.
smart, dude.
Have you guys ever done something bad where other people were punished because of you? Where it made you feel guilty, like, man, I am the biggest. Because that's worse a lot of times is, okay, I can be punished or whatever, and that sucks. But when you see other people enduring consequences because of what you did, that's more powerful in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard.
I know with me, the reason I bring that up, in elementary school, 6th grade, right? Finishing elementary school, last day of school. And when it's like, we're going to have a field day, recess, fun day, the teacher's bringing in snacks and sodas. And again, as a kid, you're like, oh, whatever. But as an adult, you're like, teacher doesn't make that much money out of their own pocket. They're bringing in sodas. Like, you realize how nice that is when you're an adult because you have a different frame of reference looking at things. But as a kid, you're just like, kind of selfish, whatever. So, and it's the stupidest, most minor thing. But it was like they were taking, okay, what drink do you want? And you would say, oh, I want a Coke, or I want a Mountain Dew, or I want this soda or that soda. So I said, I want a Mountain Dew. That's what I wanted. So the day rolls around and I get a Coca-Cola and I'm pissed that I got a Coca-Cola, I guess.
You're like, what is this?
Yeah, I'm like, what is this crap? You know, and I'm like angry about this, right? So I take this can outside and I punt the Coke. I just kick it.
No.
I had an anger problem as a child.
Yeah.
I just kicked this can. When I kicked it, it landed and it sprung a leak. And Coke was spraying all over the place. Yeah. And so my buddy's like, oh, I can get that to stop. I can fix that. So he takes this can and he throws it against the wall on the outside of the school to try to get like the metal to to come up over that hole that's leaking or whatever, I guess. Perfectly logical, right?
Don't pop the top, right?
Yeah, don't
Great
pop
technique.
the top. But, like throw it against the wall. So he's doing this. Well, the teacher hears what's going on. What is going on out here? And so it comes out that I'm this selfish little prick that is like kicking this can of soda because that's not the one that he wanted.
And your friend actually made it worse.
And my friend actually made it worse because now he brought the attention of the teacher, out to what was going on because she was inside and we were out kind of like at the playground right outside of class. So she realizes what's going on. So she's like, all right, field day's canceled. Last day of school. Field day's canceled. Everybody inside, put your heads down on your desk for the last 30 minutes of school.
Whoa.
I canceled field day for my entire class on the last day of school. I felt so awful. And that's something that like, it stays with you because it's like, there's probably people in my class that are like, remember that kid that was a total,
this
that
is
ruined
how
field day?
my elementary school experience ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be this glorious day.
And I'm the reason for that story.
And our heads are glued to the desk.
And now we're sitting, So
I'll never forget that kid.
Yeah. So like that, I still remember that to this day because that was more powerful for me because I was just so humiliated and I felt so guilty about that.
Do you think that helped you kind of get your little tiny anger issues under control? Or do you think you just...
I think it just came with maturity, I guess. I don't know why I was so damn angry as a kid.
Did you think about it later on and like maybe dial it back a bit?
No, not really. I think it just innately, like when you experience an extreme, and I mean, as a kid, you experience extreme emotions, and looking back on things that might not be what you view as an adult as a triggering event that should trigger that extreme of an emotion like that. But for me, that created an extreme emotion. So I think innately after that, I didn't think about it anymore. I just kind of changed after that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it created that extreme
you see it now
feeling.
Having kids, you see how dramatic they are over everything.
Well, yeah. And as kids, especially boys probably, I had a temper bad. Like if I lost at sports or anything, I would be pissed.
Yeah.
Angry,
Yeah.
I was just an angry kid, and I think
maybe it was the Coke, dude. I'm glad that you stopped.
Cut back on the caffeine.
It was the Mountain Dew. Yeah. He was having a Mountain Dew withdrawal,
like those kids on Ricky Bobby, right?
Yeah,
I'm all hooked off of Mountain Dew.
I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey,
dude.
What?
I think that was me. I was hopped up on Mountain Dew.
My younger son Liam. He got super dramatic at one point, and like he would fall a little bit and be like, "Ow!" and like holding his knee, like the Family Guy.
Like a basketball player does.
Yeah, and he just act like it was like the end of the world, and I'd be like, "Okay, well, let's take you to the hospital." No, I'm okay, and then he just go back to playing. But he had to get that reaction from someone, so I got the couch pillows. You could wing these things, man. They were like half filled with whatever fluff was in them, and they would like wrap around your head, and so. I'm like, I told him one day, I was like, I'm going to start toughening you up. Because I used to teach them a lot of jujitsu and stuff, and we would like ground fight and do a lot of boxing and all that. And he would always get the injury and be like, oh, I'm dying. And it drove me nuts.
Yeah.
So if he'd be walking by and I'd just grab one of them couch pillows when he wasn't looking, and I'd just blast him in the head. like he'd fall down. It sounds like child abuse, but you're not getting hurt from this.
Yeah, good shot to the head sometimes.
No, you're not getting hurt from this.
Right.
It's just like wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's like getting
it's the wow
the wind
factor.
knocked out of you almost too sometimes.
And so like the first couple of times he'd be like, and And I'd say, I told you this was coming.
Yeah.
And, but after doing it for so long, he would just turn to me and smile and then come at me. And then we'd be like wrestling and fighting. And it eventually just went away.
That's cool.
You need to toughen up. And I'd tell him every time, this is what I want to see.
And that's the interesting thing, right? Like, so if you have kids that have played sports or anything like that, you see all these other kids that they play with. It's just something innate in these kids. And it can be as young as like 5, 6, 7 years old, where there's one kid who gets soccer, for instance, they get slide tackled and that kid's writhing on the ground. And then another kid gets slide tackled and he's like, just gets up and pretends like he's not hurt. That's at like 5 or 6. That they're so different in their.
It's a
like
mindset.
One kid wants to be tough and everything, and then the other kid wants attention.
They need to learn how to get that mindset. Like that was my whole thing. That was at the time I was doing the whole "I'm training you to be an adult" thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, dudes, we do need to get into our what would you do, but there was just one last thing. Sorry to interrupt because we're putting a lot of time in. We got the last thing was just having this issue of what I eat. When I was a kid, I used to eat whatever I wanted. I'd get up in the mornings, I'd sneak in there, get frosting. I'd eat it right out of the thing. I would eat Cocoa Puffs. Don't you find that the way you eat now is a lot different than if you just ate whatever you want? You can't.
Well, I think as you get older, your metabolism slows down, right? When you're a kid, your metabolism is like a hamster on a wheel going like 800 miles an hour, you know?
Crazy. And then your body hasn't really fully developed to where it's going to store fat in these areas.
Well, and you're growing,
I mean?
and you're growing. So I think your body needs fuel to grow, you know? So it's like using all the extra calories to grow into an adult.
Yeah.
And then once you're an adult, it's like, okay, you're done growing. Now you're just going to get fat. Like if you keep eating that
now
way.
we're putting it in these areas.
Right.
Like if you keep eating that way, and we do, being Americans,
Well, and like I used to come home and my vice was Starburst or like the fruity candies and stuff.
Yeah.
I used to love that stuff. So, you know, and I grew up with a brother and sister and we shared a small house together growing up and everything. And so when I had something, dude, you had to hide that, man. Like if you let it out, like, so I was stuffing stuff under the mattress, and like my Starburst bags and stuff because I knew if it was out, it was gone.
Like Gollum from Lord of the
my
Rings,
precious,
your precious Starburst.
But I would
wasn't
eat.
allowed to have anything. Like
I would
that.
just.
I had no sugar cereal, no candy.
But I would buy it with my own money. If I had my own money, I'm going to the store and I'm getting a big ass bag of Starburst. You know what I mean? And I would eat that, and I would eat like the big bag in like one sitting. You know, and then I'd be like, oh man, I don't feel good. I wonder why I don't feel good.
I'm sick. I can't go to school tomorrow.
Yeah. or you just kill like a bag of Fritos or something after school. Or my thing was we didn't have much money growing up, so the thing I would eat every day after school was 4 pieces of cinnamon sugar toast. Like I'd make cinnamon sugar toast and I'd just kill it.
Did you like that Cinnamon Toast Crunch when that came out, that cereal?
You know, actually,
I still love cereal.
my mom never let us have sugar cereal. That was the one thing she restricted.
It was almost
like
hard to avoid.
It was like you'd have to have Rice Krispies or Cheerios, but it was even worse because instead you'd have the canister of sugar there.
Yeah.
And so if you didn't have sugar,
Sprinkle
you just dump heaps of that sugar in there, and so you got your sugar either way. But I will say, as an adult, for the longest time, I never really restricted what I ate because I always felt like, oh, I'm active enough, I go to the gym enough, or whatever, I can eat whatever. But that's not true.
Yeah.
Eventually, you have to.
Someday, but
wow.
You've cleaned up on your own. I didn't have to go there with you. I was worried for a while because you'd always have like the liquid deaths or whatever. Just like always.
Well, I still do the energy drinks.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, geez, Pierce.
To be too judgmental.
No, I still do the energy drinks because if you look at them, I mean, I don't drink coffee, so I want my caffeine.
I don't either.
And so I get my caffeine through energy drinks. But most of these energy drinks that I drink, they don't have sugar in them. They don't have carbs.
I don't drink the sugar one. Yeah.
So
it's all B vitamins.
Yeah, I don't drink that stuff. But I have cut out the sugar and the carbs and the processed foods and all that stuff and eating a lot healthier. And
well, I'm
I feel
really
a lot better
proud
too.
of you. And I'm also proud of the fact that we've come through another segment to do our What Would You Do thing. Now, I have kind of a short one, and I can go first if you guys aren't ready. Are you guys ready to do this?
Yeah.
Now, there's only 3 of us. All right. Now, I don't think that I didn't understand that there's a mathematical challenge here because one of us is going to have to go twice. I think what we'll do is you can pick who you want it to go to.
Okay.
All right, depending on your story. And then, of course, after that person goes, and the other person will go too.
He does yours. You do mine.
Okay.
I do his.
We'll do that.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
It just goes to the left.
We'll wing it.
Now, Where's this little thing?
Here you go, buddy.
Oh, okay. I don't know which one's red, so I'll go ahead and pick first. You guys want me to go first, or does it matter?
It's fine.
All right, let's not technicalities. Oh, okay, 11. So I went to a party the other night, and these people's home is in such pristine condition. Everything has such a place in it that I know, okay, take it easy, beige. But this house was even more museum type than mine, because you know where you go and dry your hands? People have certain towels you can tell that they've designated in their washroom for that job. And it's hanging on this decorative thing. There's a embossed decoration on the front of it for the holidays, and it's facing just perfect. If you go into the restroom as the first guest and you dry your hands, everybody's going to know what hoodlum was in there. You know, one kind of like totally feral human being went in there and just haphazardly dried their hands and then didn't put the towel. So after I dried my hands, I was like, well, I got to put this back the right way, right?
OCD.
Well, I didn't want to be the person that leaves it just willy-nilly because they had it so perfect. The point is, this house was like a museum, and you couldn't, if you touched anything, it would be out of sorts, right? Mm-hmm. And I see Beige smiling, sarcastic jerk that he is, because he realizes the irony of my story is that's kind of where we are in my house. But the thing is that this place, dude, was even more than mine, even more. So I couldn't move this thing. But then I realized as I was trying to fix it that I was in the restroom too long. Like I had been in here too long. And now I started to feel
there's a line forming.
Yeah. Well, I also thought, well, everybody was in another room.
He's blowing up the bathroom in there.
I had been telling kind of a story and I finished. So the mistake I made was I had gotten too much heat at the beginning of the party. There was too many people paying attention to me and I was part of the conversation. So now that I'm away and I'm in the restroom, there's going to be too many observations about how long I've been gone.
Noticing your absence.
Yeah, noticing my absence. If I had just gone in under the radar, I could have left the towel willy-nilly, used the restroom as long as I wanted, dried my hands wherever I want. But I also had that pressure. So I felt like it was kind of like a Mission Impossible scenario where I'm trying to get... So I got it all situated. So here's my question to you, Levin, all right? You go to like somebody's house like this and it's very, very fancy and that happens. Do you mess with that? And if you're not the first one in there and the towel is really wet, have you ever, when you dry your hand on the little towel and it's all wet, what do? Do you use the other towel that you know you're not supposed to use that's hanging behind you that's supposed to be, or what do you do? Do you use some tissue? I mean, so this is what I'm posing to you with these.
So to me, like they make it look all perfect and everything, but they know it's not going to be perfect after someone uses it. And me personally, I wouldn't want it to be perfect because I would want the next person to know, okay, yeah, this asshole washed his hands. He washed them because I can see the evidence right here.
Good point.
Maybe not like throw the towel on the counter or something, but I wouldn't care if it was messed up at all. And if it was wet, I will be using those other towels.
Yeah.
They should know better.
Well, and if they're having a party, everything's going to be...
You don't leave anything out that you don't want used.
Everything's going to be in pristine condition because people get their house ready for when people come over.
They know
when you're not there, it might be a friggin' mess. They might have hired people to come in here and tidy up the whole place. You know what I mean?
I can't say too much about the decorations that were in the house, but these folks live like this all the time. It was crazy.
Well, then you got to teach them a lesson.
They have a cleaning staff.
They were really good people, though.
Well, really, and I would say if you're so concerned about that, instead of taking the towel and like doing this with rubbing your hands with it and everything, can't you just dab it? Can't you just dab the hands?
You know what I like rubbing. I like being able to really get in there though and dry my hands and wipe the towel. And I thought the same thing. If it was wet, then I'm just drying my hands with somebody else's filth. Yeah. And I thought, right next to, and here was the other challenge. So it was hanging on this decorative thing, and the towel wasn't really secure on this thing. And every time I moved it, it wobbled and it made a sound. I was also worried about.
Do you think maybe it was just a decoration towel?
No, it was clearly the other ones? No, it was clearly for drying. But right below that, what they had was they also had these decorative paper towels that were folded, and they had Christmas decorations on them. So when I went to dry my hands using the towel that was the least amount of resistance to use, then I noticed I dripped on the decorative towels, and I was like, shh, now I just dripped on the towels, and then they're going to see that I didn't use those, but they're wet. And it's, dude, it was everything you touched in there. It was like mayhem. You couldn't do anything right. And so
They
I was
set you
trying
up
to,
for failure,
I was
dude.
trying to fix everything in there. I went back to and I kind of was able to blend back into the party.
He
But dude,
comes
it was
out. He comes out all
difficult, man.
stressed out.
Yeah, I
and
was
sweating.
stressed, bro. I was
They're like,
stressed.
"Are you feeling okay?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it was stressful.
Are you strictly opposed to drying your hands on your clothing?
I am.
You're
Yeah, I don't
strictly
like
opposed to
doing
that.
I mean, in an emergency, I'll go ahead and wipe it in my
I mean,
pants.
I probably wouldn't do that if it's like a khaki where it looks like you pissed yourself.
Obviously got a
Yes.
wet stain on your
But like
pants.
if I'm wearing black pants, I might do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Where, on the buttocks or?
probably on the thigh, thigh area. I
Have you
mean,
ever thought about underneath your shirt? Maybe just kind of,
If my
No, generally,
if my
the
kids are there, I'll
thighs,
just rub it on their back.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go. That's the benefit of having kids.
Exactly.
That's why I had
you're
'em.
lucky, man.
Or
Right.
do you ever, if you can't wash your hands, and then somebody immediately wants to shake your hands after you come out of like a bathroom or
Oh.
something?
I don't
your
like it.
hands are wet,
Yeah.
and then you're like,
No.
hey, don't worry, that's not.
If
piss.
I
that's
do,
not, that's water.
No, I tell them that it is piss because it's so.
Like who does that?
Like you
right?
saw me just walk out of the
Yeah, you wanna
bathroom.
shake
Why
my
you want to
hand?
shake my hand?
Yeah.
Okay, I just peed on my hand. There you go, dude.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What the?"
That's
Yeah.
unsat to go shake someone's hand right after they come out of the restroom. You should know better.
Yeah.
That's on you.
Yeah,
That's
well,
on you.
All right,
All right, there
All
we
right.
go.
Whose turn is it next?
I'll go.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I wanna go.
Levin's going. All right, he's got something in the
Yeah, he's ready
chamber
to
here.
go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Beige.
Fired up.
Okay.
Dumb and Dumber situation.
Okay. It's
You're
my
in the-
life.
You're living. This is just your life. Let's say you're at a party like that. You're upset stomach. You go in there and you just
Let it go. Mm.
And people can hear him?
no,
Okay.
no. But the toilet don't work.
Oh, no.
Oh, gee.
no.
Come on.
What do you do?
It's too bad we had to go there.
Okay, first of all, before we even get there, if
The toilet ain't working.
I got to drop, okay, if you got to drop and there's people around, that, especially that you don't know,
It's emergency situation. So you had to.
but still, I mean,
You don't,
I mean,
you don't know this
still-
house. You just walked in.
Okay.
You only know that one bathroom.
but still, if you're doing that and you're like, I'm going to make some noise here potentially, and there's people around here that I don't know, I'm flushing the toilet to begin with because you need
Yes.
that cover noise. You need the white noise.
well, and
to
you want it
cover
gone
up.
immediately. You don't.
Right.
You don't want.
No, I'm flushing it before I go because you need the white noise to cover up
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other noise that's going to be happening,
Yeah.
right? So you either run the faucet,
Mhm.
so you get the little,
turn the shower on?
or
Okay.
or you flush the toilet to
They're like,
begin
is he
with.
in there taking a shower?
But if you flush the toilet to
you don't know my life.
but if you flush the toilet to begin with, then you know, like, oh man, this toilet doesn't work. What do I do now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had done
Okay.
that first, you would know,
well,
right?
let's say you didn't.
And you can't,
you can't hold it.
and you can't hold it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you gotta go, you gotta go,
Yeah.
right? You can't go in the tub.
You go in
Are
an
you
upper
saying
decker?
you're gonna go in the tub
No, not me. No.
Do you go in the tank?
or the
No.
sink?
No. I would go in the toilet.
You go, and
but
then, and
I would shut that door and I would go find the owner of the house and be like, "Is there a trick to this thing? Like,
Oh,
because
is
it's bad in there
Mm.
at emergency situ."
I would probably use that, and then after that, I'd go and find the owner and be like, "Dude, I tried to use your bathroom, and there was
Somebody took a number 2 in there.
Oh my god, that's the best answer ever, dude.
That's a good one. You win.
You're like, I feel sick to my stomach
yeah.
now because of what somebody
Yeah, I
else
get
did in there.
You win. What would you do, man? You win. You won today. What a winner you are, Beige.
You do.
There you go.
That's hilarious.
We should probably.
is that
Yeah. We should probably.
That's perfect.
you get the best of both worlds. You get to relieve that, and you put it on somebody else, and it's just some rando at the party. Nobody knows, you know. It's like I don't know,
Yeah.
some animal here.
There's some. Whoever that was, you got to call an ambulance. 'Cause
Yeah. We need to find out who this person was. They might not be okay.
oh my god, that's fucking funny.
We should probably pick a winner for these. Now. And you hands down
Oh,
won
man.
today's, dude. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That caught me off guard.
All right.
That was
Nice,
good.
dude.
I didn't even think of that.
Weren't expecting that.
I didn't even think of that.
All right.
Too funny.
Because you're not a straight up heathen like I am. Your mind doesn't work.
This is from the guy that came up with poop shoes. Man.
Yeah.
The Diabolical mind, dude.
Like, I think I saw Jim go in there. I did.
Yeah.
He's got a problem.
Or you know what? Instead of having a whole weird conversation, you just point at Jim, then you point at the restroom, and then you point at the owner of the house.
And then shake your hand,
and then
shake
you
your
just
fingers.
or you go like this,
We know what you
Cutting
did,
the-
Jim. We know what you did.
cutting the throat, and you just point at the owner, and you're like, you point at this guy, and then you say, chop the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next time that happens,
That was it. That
you
was
got
good.
it.
Oh, you're winning.
All right.
Okay, go.
Well, there's only one left, and it's
Oh, yeah,
Pierce.
yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yep, I guess right.
So this is another true story. This is from my younger days. So I was working this retail job, and I had multiple managers at this retail job. It was for like a big box store. So you have multiple managers. Well, one of these managers one day asks me, I had a few managers ask me different things that put you in kind of a precarious position outside of work. One was the actual head store manager wanted me to go to church with her and her family. Maybe she felt like
saw something in you,
I needed to be saved
Yeah.
or something. I don't know.
or she saw that you didn't have something in
Or
you.
yeah, who
She
knows?
worried about you.
But at that
Saw
point,
What kind of church was this?
I think it was just, I mean, it sounded like a cult, really, to be honest with you. But
She thought
I mean,
you'd
it was,
be down with the cult.
it was Christian based, but it was
It's
like,
kind of flattering.
but it was like, we don't really have a brick and mortar. We put up a tent and I was like, this sounds like a little Jones.
we will need a
like,
lock of
yeah.
your hair.
We will need- So that kind of like put me in an awkward position where, okay, at that point in my life, I didn't go to church. I wasn't about church or anything like that. I really didn't have an interest in going. I'm a 17-year-old kid or 18-year-old kid, and I just wasn't thinking that way. So it puts me in an awkward position where I'm like, okay, well, if I don't go to church, am I going to then
Be on the outs.
be on the outs with the store, with the boss?
Yeah.
Damn.
So if a situation like that is presented to you by a boss or something, asking you to do something that you don't necessarily feel comfortable doing, but refusing to do that is going to adversely affect you potentially, how do you handle that situation?
I'd like to guess what Pierce is going to do before
right.
he says it. I think Pierce,
Fascinating. The game gets even deeper now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not only do you give your what would you do, but then somebody else says, I think this is what he would do.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Pierce is a good friend of mine.
Yeah. This game is
He's one of a
evolved.
kind.
I'm kind of worried.
He's got a
Yeah,
unique mind, and
one
I'd
of
love to
one.
guess what he would do because I was wrong the last time on the last show.
Yeah,
I was
that's right.
completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
This time, I think he's going to agree to go, and then he's going to make up a story to why he can't.
Ooh.
That
That's
is
pretty good.
Pretty close on what I was thinking, honestly. I was thinking of trying to come up with an excuse beforehand and just not going because that's
What if it's a persistent thing? It's like an every Sunday
they're
thing.
saying,
Oh.
It's a,
change-
hey,
Good.
every Sunday, open invitation, come on down. You going to come up with an excuse
hard part,
every
too,
Sunday?
Well, the hard part is
Injuries,
if
there's sickness, there's dead relatives.
Yeah.
well, there's what makes that difficult too is because if you go one time and you realize now the ante is upped, meaning that you really don't want to be there, you don't want to go to this thing after you've gone once, and now you try to get out of it, that's even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because now it's going to look like
Yeah.
not only do you not want to go, but now you're saying no to whatever they've welcomed into their approach or life.
Now you're disproving
Yeah.
their experience
Yeah.
that they're engaging in.
And anytime I look at a scenario, I always try to, like a chess match, not necessarily always, but there are certain things like that where you want to look ahead a little bit. And I see the merit in being direct up front. And I've always come to this. Now, this is a maturity thing that has evolved over time for me. I wasn't always necessarily this way, but I've found that if you are more direct and upfront right away, it's always going to make things better, especially with a situation like this that could lead into repeat awkward scenarios. So honestly, I would try to be direct and I'd say something like, on Sundays, I have plans with my family. We go to another thing or whatever, because that would be the way I would.
But what if that's not the truth and you just don't want to go?
Well, that would be the truth for me. That's my truth because, yeah. See, that's my truth, because the truth is I don't want to go because I do have something else I'm going to do.
I would
with my
literally
family.
rather be doing anything other than that.
Yeah. And then I try to tell them, now,
No, I don't want to join your cult.
it's always how you say stuff. That's
Right.
what people don't. And I hope that sometimes, even though this is a lot of this just laughing at ridiculous stuff, sometimes there is maybe a tidbit of wisdom, and it's not necessarily just coming from one of us, but together. And it's just that there's always sometimes honesty, best policy, and it's how you say stuff. You can still be honest, but it's how you say it.
Mhm.
You know, you don't just say, I don't want to go because I don't like your weird thing that you're going to do this weekend. But you say, there are ways to do stuff.
To let
with
somebody
people.
down easy, basically.
And I do consider myself adept at that, because I always try to keep things light.
You've hurt my feelings quite a few times.
Well, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it
Just
has
kidding.
to be done. But I always try to do things in a way that I always try to let people save face, and at my own detriment. And actually, it's hurt me a couple of times, because there have been times where I'll make myself kind of the butt of my own joke or whatever. And there's some people that don't seem to
That's just you being a hoe.
Yeah.
Right?
They don't understand the grace in that, though. And so they just end up then adding on top of that. I've done that with some people in work functions, and then they take shots at me in front of the brass. And all of a sudden it's like, dude, I was just trying to, and it's been exploited now. And so that's kind of a thing where I've definitely fallen victim to my own tactics, but I find 9 times out of 10, if you're just kind of, you try to be humble, you try to realize it's just about lightheartedness, levity. And that's the way I try to do it.
So to sum it up, you would come up with a rebuttal to that, but something that's not temporary, but is a permanent no.
Yeah. I have stuff that I do with my families on Sundays, which is true. I wouldn't tell them necessarily, hey, I go to this church instead, but that would be something, that I may say, but something about how, I've got plans, and I, unfortunately and that would be the truth.
Yeah.
So sorry, no can do. And then I would try to somehow make it funny.
Yeah, probably.
Try to make a funny.
What did you do?
I didn't go. I think I just kind of ghosted that person.
That's Beige's way. Yeah.
Until they stopped asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way I used to handle pretty much
Yeah,
everything back
yeah.
then was I don't want to
Sophisticated.
directly confront you. I'm just
back then I would have done the same thing.
yeah, I'm just going to ghost you, and then eventually people will get the message, That's but you're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
That's the way you handle crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
You're not
you don't
mature
have
about
enough
it.
life experience to navigate
Yeah.
So
everything.
you just want to avoid stress and confrontation. So you just
Well, you don't want to let
Ghost.
people down either.
Yeah,
Right.
It's
You know,
hard.
exactly.
It's hard to do. It's easier said than done. And it's also easier for me to describe it. But yeah, doesn't mean that it's always been easy.
Yeah, and they were a super nice person, and everything was
Yeah.
coming from a good place, obviously. So, but it was just at that point in my life, I'm busy being 17, 18 years old and selfish and doing what I want to do. And, I'm not there in my life.
You know what's made me realize how much I didn't know at that age is my son now being 16. He has a best friend, and the guy has a girlfriend, whatever, but and then there's 3 other guys, and they all came over for Halloween. And I guess the best friend guy left with the girlfriend. Those other 3 were there. Well, one of them's kind of like an a-hole, and the other 2 just follow him.
Mhm.
And for some reason, they turned against my boy. They were like, "Oh, screw you," and blah, blah, blah. And then they left and slammed the door. And it was eating him alive he's a really emotional type kid, And it was really getting to him. And it got to the point where his stepdad called me. First time I ever talked to him. He's a good guy. He's really good to the kids and everything. And we've texted before, but I've never but he called me, and Evan's being really disrespectful towards me. He's kind of being this little angry. So I called him, and I could tell something's up. And everyone calls me whenever there's anything wrong with him. It's they're like, "Oh, you're the Evan whisperer," And so I call him. I finally get it out of him. He tells me the whole story, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Well, you can't be soft." I walked him through the whole thing and everything. I won't sit here and go over everything that I said to him. But pretty much I'm you need to stand your ground. I'm don't be aggressive towards them because he's 6'6" and they're 5'2". I'm you could murder these kids. I don't want you fighting anyone, but stand your ground, demand answers. What the hell's going on? And say that you're not okay with that. And I talked to him about it for like hours. We went over the whole thing, and he did it, and it worked. He's like, everything he said, it was everything I did, and it worked perfectly, and everything's fine now.
Well,
like,
yeah, because
but it made me think, like, man,
because when you're a kid, especially, like, you're just trying to avoid confrontation. Like, that's what he was doing. He didn't want to directly confront the issue, and instead he just let it eat him up inside.
But I was happy that it went well, because that's like a life building skill right there. You know, like that taught
He's
him.
going to use that again.
Now it'll be a frame of reference to be like, you know what, I did this before. It made me feel better. I'm going to do this again.
Yeah, and like a week later, he was, "Thank you, Dad, for teaching me everything I know, and teaching me to drive, and teaching me." And I was like, "Oh, cool, man."
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice thing about being a parent. Every once in a while, you were like, you're in those moments where you're like, okay, this is my opportunity. This is a life lesson for you. I'm gonna give you some wisdom here. You know, like, you do have those moments where you're like, I'm trying to convey a life.
I think I do it
lesson.
too much to them, because I'll start to talk to them, and they're like, "Oh, God."
Yeah.
But I don't care. I'm
they may not listen to you now, but they'll say, "You know what, Dad, you were right."
Yeah.
Like, in 10 years from now, they'll be like, "You're right."
If 9 times out of 10, if they're not listening, and eventually something's going to sink in, and they're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to fall back on something that I said somewhere.
Or they may not be listening, or it look like they're listening, but they're listening, they're hearing, you know, but they're not showing you that.
I don't want to make you guys feel bad, but when I pass away, that's it. And you guys are leaving legacies, and you're having children tell you that they're going to remember what you said. So don't feel bad about the fact that, you know, you're kind of showing off and about how you're, you know, you have this legacy and you have these children. It doesn't make me feel bad. I mean, I don't worry about me.
Evan just asked about you the other day.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, I love that guy.
See, you can
have both your kids.
Yeah, you can have influence with not.
I'm like their uncle they never had, kind of.
Yeah, or never wanted.
And never needed. He's not the uncle we wanted, but he's the uncle we needed. Yeah.
No, he's the uncle we got.
Yeah. Kind of like Batman in a way.
There you go.
Well, that's a good place to end the show. Kind of hurts, kind of stings, but sometimes
there's a
you.
tear.
Yeah,
I see a tear rolling down your
Sometimes
cheek.
you get hurt. Sometimes it's your hamstring. Sometimes it's your toe. And sometimes it's your heart. So thank you for tuning in to Heroes of Humility, you bastards. And we'll miss you until next time, but we'll probably be back with Red. We're sorry he couldn't be here. So this is Pierce signing off with
Beige
11.
And thanks for being with us, guys. Take care. Stay cool. Be kind.